Morning. My name is Jeff C., and I'm here with the lovely ladies of Tailwind, just some of them. Rebecca Radice, who is the product marketer over at Tailwind, and also Elisa Meredith, who is content marketing manager. And this is going to be our first of many live shows together. So we're very excited about this. They're joining us actually from Tailwind headquarters, where they're doing, what would you call it? Is it it's not a retreat because I got in trouble for saying that. Is a group think tank, I guess, what it would be. I guess that would be a better thing.
Retreat sounds like we're at a spa all day.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
definitely not it.
Doing some yoga,
Yeah.
not at all what's going on.
Eating some bonbons and talking about Pinterest. Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of talking, a lot of thinking. It's very stimulating and also very exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah. So as we're going along today, we've got some exciting news. I mean, and I'm not going to spoil it. I'm going to let the ladies do that. But, if you have any questions, make sure you let us know. We will try to bring those up today during the show and answer them to the best of our ability. But so what is this whole thing that we've kind of teased everybody that's going on? So what's the news?
You go, Rebecca.
It sounds like I'm taking that.
Yeah.
Well, so yes, we are very excited. We just rolled out as of last week the ability on Instagram to load your hashtags into the first comment. So, Jeff, as you know, this could be a bit of a cumbersome process. If you wanted to put your hashtags in your first comment, you would have to set up your post, so upload your image or your video. You'd have to add your description. You'd have to post that, bounce over to Instagram, and then drop those hashtags down into your first comment. And now you no longer have to do that. So you're now able, right within Tailwind, to click a button to add automatically those hashtags into that first comment. And I know we're going to get into why would you want to do this? Is it okay to do this? Is there, shadow banning that goes on? Does Instagram dislike us doing this? We're going to talk about all of that. But the really exciting thing is if you've wanted to hide for multiple different reasons your hashtag, so whether it's that you want to, keep that description, that caption clutter-free, you want to keep it pretty. We all know that our aesthetic is incredibly important on Instagram. Well, you can easily do that today without that bouncing back and forth. And I think we even had additional apps in there. I don't know about you guys, but I was before Tailwind and Tailwind lists with hashtags. I was even using just the Notes app on my phone to keep all of my hashtags. So it drove you a little crazy. And our members told us, Jeff, they told us that it was driving them crazy. This was something that they wanted, and we listened. So here it is.
So here's the important question. I want to know how many other third-party Instagram apps has this feature?
Other partners?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Zip zero.
Yeah. So
we are it.
Exclusive to Tailwind.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Yeah, but that brings up a good point, though, with the partner thing. So is this okay to do?
Yeah, so we've seen this question coming in, concerns about whether or not this was compliant, with Instagram terms of service, whether they were going to have that, so-called shadow banning happening because they were putting their hashtags down into the comment. And so what everybody needs to know that's watching currently with us live or the recorded version is that whenever we roll out a new feature like this, we work directly with Instagram's team. So as a partner, we have direct access to Instagram. And so, yes, they knew every step of the way exactly what this feature looked like, how it would function once it was out there in the wild like it is today. And we are 100% in compliance with Instagram. So you can use this and have peace of mind that there are no problems whatsoever.
So I'm going to get on a little high horse a little bit right now because it drives me nuts because when there's a lot of third-party apps that aren't official partners with the platforms that they're pushing a certain feature with, and there's a lot of gurus will go, hey, this is a great feature and all this stuff, but we all know that the people that there was specifically some Pinterest ones that did this, that broke the terms of service, and they eventually went bye-bye, and it affected a lot of people. So always, as an important safety tip, only use approved third-party developers for these apps that say that they're going to do a certain feature. And that's why I love Tailwind for both Pinterest and Instagram, is because of that feature, that they are, official partners with these social media platforms.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a really good point. And you might even talk a little bit about how do you know? How do you know if they are breaking those terms of service? So things like they don't have OAuth when you're actually logging in. They're asking for your Instagram login or password. That is a huge no-no and should always be a big red flag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And here's from our friend Mike Alton. He says this: I always trust Tailwind to do what's right and proper for Pinterest or Instagram. Thanks, Mike. That's awesome. Yeah, and that's the same reason, that I trust him, and I have before I was even part of the show. I trusted him for this stuff. So, very
Thanks,
cool
Jen.
stuff. Yeah. So, very very important. By the way, if you are watching us over on Twitter, make sure that you use the hashtag Tailwind Show, and that way I can also bring up your questions here on screen if you have any of those. So go back to what we were talking about.
So I want to know, why would I want to do this? Because in the past, I have just formatted my captions with the hard returns and the characters on each line so I could.
Right.
So I know people have their own way of doing this, but what would be the reason for wanting to put them in first comment?
Yeah, and there are a variety of different ways that we've gone about trying to hide our hashtags, whether it's, that version you're talking about where you were using those line breaks, or maybe the 5 dots so that you are hiding them down. As we know today, you see those first 2 lines within your description. So you really can hide them without all that fancy work or extra steps. But the reality is, as people open up your post and your caption, if you've got, let's say, this really terrific post, and then down at the bottoms, you just have this jumbled mess of 30 different hashtags that can look a little bit spammy. It can be a turnoff. It can also be a distraction to your Instagram audience, where you want them to really understand and feel the purpose of that post, the words within that, and not get focused on all of those hashtags. So that would be one real reason why you want to drop them down into that first comment, is to keep the focus on your actual post and not all of those hashtags. It's also to keep it kind of clutter free, like I said at the beginning. So very clean. If you're worried about keeping that description clean, clutter free, pretty, like we all like over on Instagram, that would be another big reason, I think, as well.
So here's the big question though. Does it work as well? Because I have heard, there have been some small studies that show that maybe in caption works better. What do you think?
Yeah, so there's no definitive proof out there that one works better over the other. And you are correct. I've seen several studies where there hasn't been necessarily the controlled data that we would like to see around that in terms of whether putting those hashtags into your caption as opposed to into that first comment makes a bigger difference or hurts your engagement. I think the important thing for everybody to recognize, well, I think there's a couple of things within this. First of all, we know with the Instagram algorithm, what is so incredibly important is you get those hashtags out there lickety split. So previously, another drawback, so a con to having to post and then bounce back and put those hashtags into the comment is you were losing precious seconds, maybe even minutes, to where you could start to build up momentum based off of those hashtags. So by adding those immediately, you're not losing that time. So that's a really important piece there with the engagement. But I would say test for yourself. You want to test your times, which you can do all of this within Tailwind, where we're going to tell you based off of your best times to post. Let's say you want to post twice a day. We're going to give you those 2 best times to post. So test those best times, then test out where you're putting those hashtags within those times. So test out keeping them within your caption and the test, dropping them down into that first comment, because it is going to have to do with your audience too. Have you trained them to where they don't want to see your hashtags? They don't want to have to deal with that. They don't want to have to scroll past that. So I think it does come down to your audience, your own engagement, as well as your preference. Would you prefer to see them somewhere other than in your caption?
I'm going to put you guys on the spot here. So do you know how many characters you're allowed to have in an Instagram post?
Oh gosh, it's huge, and I don't know the number off the top of my head.
Because one of the things the reason I'm asking that question is there's a lot of influencers who are out there who are actually writing almost a mini blog post with their Instagram thing, and that's a strategy that a lot of them are using. And with some of the changes with Facebook and Instagram, it's going to be interesting to see if that is a valid strategy or not. But my point is at the end of that, you don't want to have even another, up to 30 hashtags at the end of a really nice long blog post, because that's too much and can look really ugly. So I think that's also important, what you were talking about, keeping the aesthetic the way that you want it to be. So it's really going to be interesting to see what people are going to do. Yeah. We do have some questions coming up, if you guys don't mind answering them. So let's see here. Can't pull it up. Let me see what's going on here.
Okay. Well, I had another thing that I thought of. If you wanted to do hashtags and captions, I mean, I knew I was going to say that. Hashtag and first comment. Before, you really couldn't auto post, because you would have to have a timer somewhere else set up to tell you, okay, it auto posted, go do your hashtags. And what would be the point of that anyway? So you would still have to use a notification posting, which, I mean, we're past that now, thank goodness.
Yes.
So it's always auto post.
So here's a question from, let's see here. It is Samantha. She goes, can you schedule the comment, or do you need to manually go in and click when your post goes live?
Yeah, that's exactly what Elisa was alluding to. So the beautiful part about that, Samantha, and I'm not sure if it's Samantha or Samantha Jane, but that's such a gorgeous name. It feels kind of Southern to me. The beautiful part about it is you can schedule all of this. So when you go into Tailwind and you're getting ready to drop that post into your auto post features. So your auto post is tied to your best times to post. So instead of you every single time having to sit there and think, well, maybe my best time to post is 1 o'clock in the afternoon, or maybe my best time to post is 8 o'clock at night. We do that heavy lifting for you, and we help you set up your schedule based off of your best times to post. And as you're doing that, as you're dropping it into your queue, there's a button that you just click that says to automatically drop your hashtags. So just to give you an idea from a formatting perspective, let's say you've uploaded your image or your video, you've dropped in your caption, and then typically you just paste your hashtags either from a hashtag list that you've got in Tailwind, or you're just pasting in those typically used hashtags that you're using. And those would all show up in your post, right? Instead, you can do exactly that. You can put all of that into that caption, click the button, and we will automatically move all of those hashtags out of your caption and into that first comment. And it all happens simultaneously. So you don't have to lift a finger. You don't have to notify yourself to come back and do that. It just all happens.
That's cool. So what if, sometimes I like to speak in hashtags, right? We all do that a little bit, right?
Yes.
So if you're saying
#eye roll.
Yeah. So like on my way to Chicago, #speaker life, I'm going to speak blah blah blah, but I want that hashtag to stay in my caption because that's part of the way I'm speaking in this caption. Right. And then I have other hashtags that I want to put in the first comments. Can I do that?
Absolutely. And I feel you, because I do the same thing. Part of my strategy typically is where within my caption, I'll have my description along with 4 of those keywords that kind of tell the story or just share. Sometimes I think they're the exclamation point on your caption as well. So yes, you can separate those out. So again, back to the formatting. If you were to write your caption, your description, you could add those additional hashtags right to, either right next to or just below. And then you could separate out. So you could use, say, the 5 dots to separate out all of your other hashtags, and Tailwind will, again, automatically identify separation between those first ones that are included in your caption. Those will be posted with your original caption, and then the ones below, the line breaks or those dots.
Yeah, you don't even need that.
Yeah.
So you could do on my way to Chicago, #Speaker Life, really looking forward to speaking. That part will go in your caption. And then at the end of that, no formatting needed. You could just put #Instagram, #influencer.
And I guess we're talking about a couple of different things here.
Okay. So those at the end of your caption, if you click that little button, those will go to your first comment where that Speaker Life one stays.
Yeah.
Which is so cool because you can do everything you want.
So I see a test coming on here. So I think that I would love to see the results of having it, what I would call an inline hashtag, where you would have it kind of organically in the post, like you were saying, Speaker Life, and then also have a bunch down at the bottom where Tailwind automatically puts it in the first comments, and see if there's any difference by doing those two at the same time, because now with Tailwind, you're allowed to, boom, they all go live at the same time. So you would technically get in the first post and in the first comment at the same time. What's that going to do? Ooh, evil genius laugh right there.
Like
yeah.
Insert evil laugh.
Yeah, that was an evil laugh.
Yeah. So
yeah, definitely. And that goes back to the point of we should always be testing, always really identifying what's working best for you, what's working best for your business, what's working best for your audience to get yourself out there and in front of them. I was reading, and I'm trying to remember who it was that was talking about this, but I was reading a blog post yesterday and just talking about the differences and what they were testing as far as how many hashtags. So using 4 as opposed to 11, as opposed to 30. And their joke was, well, if you're perfectly fine with 0 growth, nobody's seeing your post, don't ever use hashtags at all.
Right.
Exactly.
And but I think we all know the importance of hashtags at this point, and we've all been trying to find a workaround to make them a little bit prettier so that they weren't taking up so much of that real estate within our post. But yeah, Jeff, I think there's always a test. There's always something we can continue to learn from, iterate upon, and find a better way to keep our content out there in front of our audience.
So a hashtag finder has been out for a little while now, and hashtag list, and people love those features because who wants to think about hashtags? I don't know about you, but if I actually have something Instagram worthy, it's all I can do to come up with a caption. And I'm not using it for marketing. I'm really using it for fun. But if it's important to you, those hashtags really can't be an afterthought.
Absolutely.
And that's what they become. But Jeff, you had an interesting strategy for when you have a new client who doesn't have much engagement. Will you talk about that a little bit?
So what I do when you're trying to, somebody's new on Instagram or a new client who hasn't done much on Instagram. So one of the things I do is I load up those hashtags and I'm start experimenting, especially with Tailwind's hashtag finder, and finding ones that are really niche and then some broader ones. And then I switch those up. And as the account grows, then I stop doing all the 30 and just kind of rotate out some ones that I know do well for that specific industry or market. And the other thing is with the hashtag finder, one of the things that's a pain to do is hashtag research. And I really don't have to do that with the Tailwind hashtag finder, as I can go in, because hashtags change. You can't just, if you're doing the same, hashtags you were doing 3 months ago, it ain't working So you need to go and be finding new ones all the time. And that's what I love about the hashtag finder on Tailwind, especially because it's color coded and I can really see, oh, that one will be, I should be getting a lot of engagement with that. That's going to work well. That one's a little niche, but I still want to use it because it's a branded hashtag. And so rotating those out after I get some of that engagement going with a new client.
Yeah, it definitely helps for those of us that are visually inclined, right? You can see with that color coding, the difficulty really
Right.
within those hashtags. And so that's a strategy in and of itself too, is what type of hashtags are you looking to use? Are they those broader ones that may have 1 million plus posts within them, but is it going to be far more difficult for you to actually show up in those top 9 posts? So really thinking about your strategy from that level, Jeff, I think is so critical of what are those, say, top 5 categories that I'm going to be posting about, those top 5 categories that I want to be known for or I'm already known for. And then how can I find the best hashtags that are going to give me the greatest ability to show up within that, so that as people click through, they're finding me.
And the thing
So Jeff, I want to.
I was going to say, one of the things I was going to say is a lot of times there's ones that I don't even think about. So like I was doing one for a cocktail, they sell cocktail supplies. And so, I'm doing the hashtag search inside of the hashtag finder and Tailwind. And I'm doing cocktails and stuff. And all of a sudden Imbibogram came up and it was bright green. Oh. And then it was Bartender Life was bright green. I'm like, I'll try those. And that shot those posts to the top. I would have never thought of Imbibogram or Bartender Life when I was doing my hashtag research,
right?
but Tailwind did. And so, that to me, this is why it's invaluable, be able to discover new hashtags and not have to, spend hours on Instagram going down rabbit holes and seeing what other people are doing. I can do it right there inside of Tailwind.
Well, and I was going to say too, as we were talking about just the formatting and how you're writing those out, you can do that as you're writing your description. So we launched Typeahead several weeks ago, meaning that you can just put that hashtag symbol, type one letter, so S, and all of a sudden, we're going to come up with relevant suggestions based off of your description. So yeah, I think you listed like 5 different ways you can save time, but also expand your reach, Jeff, in allowing us to do some of that work behind the scenes to find those hashtags that maybe you would have never thought of.
Yeah. Right.
So can you unpack for us a little bit how you do the testing? Because you said you would start with 30 and then you would start to pare down until you had the ones that really worked well. So when you say they worked well, what does that mean and how do you know? Well,
I noticed because I'm tracking the stats, but also usually it's the follower count goes up, and also I look on the engagement on the posts because, you have to balance, I think, between followers, because you want followers because you get more people to see your stuff, but you also really want engagement because that all ties into it together. So I found that sometimes, depending on the hashtag, some hashtags do better for engagement and then some do better for reach. And so mixing those together and finding out which ones those work, and then also seeing, okay, those are kind of fading away. Like they're either that hashtag's getting too big and your post is getting lost in that, and so it may be time to switch up a hashtag. And so that's how kind of when I pare them down, then I'll start mixing up those different hashtags. And if it starts kind of plateauing, then I'll go back and even increase the hashtags and go back to maybe the 30 for a couple posts to see if that will jumpstart things again and maybe get a bunch more hashtags in there to play with. So that's what I've been doing.
Are you working with any local companies where you're kind of tying geotagging into those hashtags? So really,
yeah. I do that because they do have some brick and mortar stores that I want to make sure that with those hashtags. One of the things, and there was a question that we had earlier. I went by it too quick, but about here, let me pull it up real quick because it was a good question. Let's see. It was about should the should the first comment only have hashtags, or is tagging okay too? And I usually tag. I do it in both places. I tag, like if I'm tagging a person, I'll tag it in the image and also in actually the comments. But you guys can answer this. Is it okay to have tagging in the same thing as the first comment, or do you guys even try that? I always put it in the post. I never go to the first comment for my tags.
Yeah, I honestly don't think I ever have tried to do that or just done that, because usually the strategy behind it is you want to be pretty forthright in the fact that you're tagging this person. You want this person to know that you've mentioned them, or that maybe you've written a blog post about them, or they gave you a quote within a blog post. And so you're giving them a shout out. So to me, there's usually a different strategy behind this, where you want it to be very evident as opposed to hiding something like that.
Yeah. So when you tag them in the caption, which you can also do with Tailwind, that's different from just mentioning in a comment. So when you tag somebody, it's going to show up in their profile in a special little spot, and it will stay there. So it's different from tagging. You could absolutely tag someone in a comment later, but I think you said, it's going to have a bigger impact if you officially tag them in the caption.
Yeah.
Right.
So I guess it depends on what your goal is, but for the most part, I think just about everybody's goal is to make sure that person's getting a notification.
Yeah.
And
but I don't think it hurts anything. It wouldn't hurt anything to add it.
And back to your original question, Rebecca, I do usually always geo tag my own posts, like where, if there's a store. The only problem is there was about 2 weeks ago, and some of our listeners may have found this, that it was stopping. Location tagging is what was stopping some of the automatic posts from happening, and so there was a big what's going on, and nothing's, and that was that was Instagram wide. That wasn't just Tailwind. That was every app that was official partner and used the API. So that should be fixed for now if you've stopped doing location tagging, but you still just probably want to watch it because it's Facebook, and Instagram's owned by Facebook, and so you never know. So you keep watching that.
Yep.
Let's see here. There's a couple other questions. First of all, I want to send this because Samantha says, thanks for the answer. This is fantastic. Thank you, Samantha, for watching. We love hearing that. Mike Alton went ahead and in fact, he actually, that was one of the reports that we all read. He says, we tested this at Social Media Lab, but at the time you had to manually add that first comment. Automatically and immediately posting should be good. So I think I can't wait to test this even more with, like we mentioned before.
That's exactly the point, right? Because we do need to test that. But it's a totally different game when you're doing it exactly the same time. So
we'd actually talked, Mike, about and in fact I saw Scott at Social Media Marketing World that wrote this post and kind of performed that. And it was, I think, a couple of years ago. I want to say he did it in 2017. So it would be interesting for him to update that, because it's so different now, and how we're posting and how we're able to post, and just a world of difference.
Here's a great question by Shaylee. Can you tell via Tailwind which hashtags are bringing the most reach? Now, we talked about the color coding before, but I don't know if is that reach. I mean, how is that broken down?
That's predicting your possible exposure, right? So you have your different colors, which are going to show your niche, which means there is not a lot of search volume for that, but there's also not a lot of competition. So then there's competitive. That one means you're probably going to get buried in half a second. Then there's good and best? Those are the ones that are like a nice mix, but you still want to try a few of each color.
And gray
but
is
it won't
niche.
tell you. Yeah, it won't tell you which ones are guaranteed to bring you the most reach. And even as far as analyzing them afterwards, you can't really tie hashtag to impressions or hashtag to comments or likes.
Right. Yeah. So Yes and no, I guess is the
Right,
answer
right.
to your question. Yes, you can see potentially what's going to give
Potentially.
you the biggest reach. But this
But
goes back to what we were talking about, and Jeff, you were talking about in really paying attention
Hmm.
to those hashtag groups and what you're
Yes.
using and what's working best.
Yeah.
and,
So
and,
it's
and-
easy to go into post insights.
Mhm.
Like if you go into post insights, you can see the post, you can see the comments and the likes on
Right.
it, and that's, I think, Jeff, what you were talking about, how you figure out which hashtags to use is by looking at those kinds of numbers.
right. And one of the other
Plus
things
read.
is it doesn't matter how great your hashtags are. If your image stinks, it ain't going to matter. You know how many great hashtags you have. You have to have a good image
Or
too.
your
Like,
caption.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
true.
So here's a great question from Erin. She goes, is this only a desktop app option right now? We had some other people ask, is this available in the Tailwind app?
It is desktop only because it is an auto post feature. But yeah, definitely something we're working on as far as mobile is concerned. So if you have not enabled auto post, meaning that it's what I was talking about earlier, where you can find your best times to post and then just automatically drop that down into your queue, I would
no
highly,
notifications.
yeah, exactly, highly suggest you turn that on. So yeah, you can do away with those pesky notifications.
Yeah. We don't need those.
And
But
here,
yeah, as far as just like mobile options and Android, that is absolutely priority for us right now. We feel
Yeah.
you on that one because we know that's how you're using Instagram to a large extent.
Yeah.
and here's, I think this is a great question from Karen. She goes, I have never used Tailwind yet. Will you walk us through a typical post using these new techniques? Go.
Ooh.
That's a good
Okay.
question.
Go.
I think I kind of did that, but let's do it again.
Do it.
So, Karen, you can either upload an image or a video. So whatever you're looking to post to your Instagram feed. I love this little plant. I keep I'm like stabbing my hand. I talk
Let's take
my
the plants
husband.
away.
My husband is Italian, and I think I've taken over a bit of his habit. He says that if you tied my hands behind my back, I couldn't talk.
Right.
So there you go. Karen, so what's going to happen is you're going to upload your image or your video. You're going to add your caption or your description. And then what we were talking about is it's kind of preference. If you wanted to add a few additional hashtags to really tell more of the story of that post that you wanted to stick within your caption, you could do that. And then down below that, you would just drop in. So you've got a couple of different ways. We were talking about hashtag lists. So right within Tailwind, you have the ability to save all of your hashtag groups. So let's just say you are a blogger and you talk about blogging on a consistent basis, and maybe you're a food blogger, so you talk about food as well. And so you have multiple different groups of, say, 30 different hashtags that you use consistently. And to Jeff's point, you're testing them, you're checking them out, but you don't want to have to copy and paste. Well, you can save them right in the Tailwind within your list, and you just name them so they're very easy for you to find. So you could either copy and paste your hashtags right into your caption, or you could just click on that hashtag list and drop those in. Or the other piece we were just talking about, which is you can actually find new hashtags by simply starting to type that hashtag symbol into your caption, and we're going to give you suggestions. So we are going to give you suggestions based off of what your caption is all about. So they're smart suggestions, and those are those suggestions Jeff was mentioning that you might not have thought of before. And so as you add all of that right there into your caption, there's going to be a button right under your post just before you add this to your queue, and it's going to ask you if you want us to automatically add those hashtags into your first comment. And you just click that button and boom, click queue, where it drops it into that auto queue where it's going to auto post based off of your best times to post. So the cool part is you do it all in one location. Once you put those hashtags in your lists and save those, they're there forever. So you never have to do that again, unless, of course, you want to change them out. And now you can see in your post ready to go out, that's scheduled, it's ready, and you don't have to lift a finger. So there's no notifications like Elisa was talking about back in the day when it wasn't really a scheduling service. It was just a notification
Reminder,
service.
yeah.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. Where you would get that notification on your phone and you'd have to bounce back in. And that's what we were talking about at the beginning too, where not only would you have to bounce in and click the button to post to Instagram, and there were several steps within that, you'd also have to go ahead and add those hashtags into your first comment, where hopefully now you can see it's as simple as creating that caption, boom, dropping that in there, clicking a button, adding your hashtags, boom, clicking a button that adds those hashtags to your first comment, and it's all set to go.
Yeah. So caption goes in, hashtags at the end, click the button, and they both go to Instagram exactly the same
All at
time.
the same time. Yep.
Yeah.
Done.
Very cool.
And you can be sleeping while it happens. If you have an audience that has very different hours than you do.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Rosanna says, will you give us a video tutorial on the different options for the visual learners? That's a great idea. I bet we're going to do something like that. So
Yeah. In fact, the blog
Jeff,
post that you put out.
we're actually working on that right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, Jeff
So-
knows a little something about it.
Yeah,
That's
even
right.
the blog post that you put out this week has a little GIF in it, so you can see exactly
Yes.
how easy. I mean, if you can fit it in a
Yep.
GIF, it's fast.
Yeah, it is.
GIF- is it
It's
GIF
so
or GIF?
simple.
um,
I
here's-
call it a GIF.
here's a
Call it
great
tomato,
here's a
tomato.
great here's a great question from Nicole. She goes, how is this different than the Smart Hash app? It sounds similar. Because I haven't used it in a while, but I did use it back in the day. One, I don't know if they're official partners with Instagram. You need to double check that. And the other thing is, it was almost like just a glorified notepad for me, where I don't know if there was any discovery on it. It was a great place to copy and paste and to save hashtag sets. But the cool thing now with Tailwind, it's all in one. You get you get to have your hashtag lists. You can discover new hashtags. You can do your automatic thing. Now you can do it. We're the only ones that allow you to do it in the first comment. So that's why I think it's different. I haven't played, like I said, I haven't played with it in a while, but I haven't used it since Tailwind came out with all this stuff. So
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. And that, that is what we heard from our Tailwind members over and over and over again was, we need to make this easier. Why does posting to Instagram have to be so darn hard? And that was exactly what we were looking to do, is make this process more efficient, and just more productive within your day. We are, like you said, we're here, Elisa and I do not live in Oklahoma City. We just happen to be visiting and are here in the Tailwind office. And I think the beauty in all of this is being able to hear from people just like you, our members, which we got to hear yesterday, in how do you actually use Instagram and how do you actually use Tailwind? And they reiterated what we heard, which is we're on the go all the time. We are busy people. We need a simplified process to post to Instagram that isn't going to require a whole lot of steps, a whole lot of different apps, and a whole lot of frustration that I just lost, 60 seconds or 5 minutes because I forgot to, set that reminder or that notification to come back and add my hashtag.
Yeah. So for context, we had 4 members actually come into the office yesterday and speak to us at a member panel lunch, which was fantastic. We have the best members in the world, I'm convinced, because they are so giving and sharing with how these products can impact their lives. It was, you'd think we were making it up if we told you some of the stuff they said, but we're not. But we appreciate knowing about that, because that really does influence our product roadmap. And Rebecca works with that every single day, that we build what we know our members need. So, if there's something about Smart Hash app that you love that the Tailwind doesn't have, tell us about it.
Yeah, that's such a great point, because that's exactly what we were talking about yesterday, sitting with the entire team, So product engineering, customer support,
our CEOs.
Yes, everybody. And those were the exact questions we were asking of what is the functionality you're looking for? What is it that would simplify even further your process, even down into what does your exact process look like? And so we are always listening. We are always asking. So yeah, Nicole, anybody else, if there is something specific that's out there that would just make your life 100 times easier, we would love to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I want to bring up this from Richard because I thought it was really good. He says, hi, Shaylee. Great question. I don't use hashtags with the most reach. I suggest using lower use hashtags to get seen and not get buried. For example, I suggest up to 50,000 or so posts per tag for accounts with less than 5,000 followers, then 100,000 or so posts for 10,000 followers. The more popular you become, the more visible you'll be. Thanks, Richard. That's great advice when we were talking about reach earlier. Thanks for sharing that.
And actually, I wrote an entire post about this not very long ago, maybe a few weeks ago. So we'll drop that link down in below as well once we get done here, because it really does kind of dispel some of those myths too, but also helps with the strategy, because I think there is that confusion of how should I choose my hashtags? How do I know which hashtags are actually going to perform the best? And I love your example, Jeff, of I would have never thought to use those particular hashtags. Who would have known unless I'd been searching in Hashtag Finder, and voila, they gave you a big boost in engagement, which is super cool.
So if we wanted to put Richard's advice into the context of Hashtag Finder, then you would say if you have a small number of followers, you're going to choose more of those niche and good and best hashtags and very few of the competitive. And then as you become more popular and your engagement grows, then start adding in more of the competitive and see if you can get traction there.
Really good. Here's another question. What about alt text used in Insta?
That's a great question. And that's so funny again, because we were just talking about this with the panel yesterday and what their strategy is. So SEO strategy, which I think is becoming a bigger and bigger topic. Elisa spends a lot of time in Pinterest, which I do as well. And that's always been a big focus, but I don't know it's been talked about as much. So yes, your alt text, you can actually change. So of course you could change it right within your image, but you can also do it right on Instagram. And the idea behind that is similar to the blogger example I used, where you're changing your alt text to be as closely related to what your image actually is, so that as say artificial intelligence is reading what that image is, it has a very clear idea as to what your post is all about. What is it you want to get found for, and who is that perfect audience that you want to show up in front of? So I think this definitely speaks to the bigger strategy. Would you agree, Jeff?
I do. I'll just say yes.
So no big strategy coming from Jeff on this.
It's pretty new. It's pretty new, and it's not clear to me yet how it's being utilized in the algorithm. Do you have a feeling for that?
There is. I'll go back to what I talked about earlier. There's no definitive answer as to whether or not it's helping you rank based off of the algorithm. But in my opinion, it can never hurt.
Yeah.
It can never hurt when we're using alt or meta or just any of those additional ways to tell not only people but search engines how to find us.
Here's a great question from Latricia. She goes, where'd it go? She goes, I'm currently using the free trial and I can't find anything to help with hashtags.
It's there. So the free trial for Instagram, just make sure you're in your Instagram free trial, not the Pinterest one.
Right.
Then when you start to post and you start to type in your caption, it will start to predict hashtags for you. Of course, that will be on desktop at this time. Right?
One of
can you do hashtags on mobile? I never use mobile.
That's a great
Oh,
question.
I'm
we're gonna
so
go.
embarrassed.
We're gonna go there right
Excuse
now.
me.
Um,
And on that
So-
same topic, this is a great question. So for both Pinterest and Tailwind, it's $30 a month or extra for the added feature?
No.
no. There's no
Okay.
extra. The
Okay,
features
sorry.
are all included. Yeah, in your package already and your plan already. So that was another point I was going to make on the free trial. There's not many applications out there that give you access to all
that's a good
features
point.
on the free trial, and we do. So you have access to everything. So if you're not seeing it, it's definitely there, and that's a great point I wouldn't have even thought of. That's the difference between veteran Tailwind and newbie over here. Is I wouldn't have thought to say check and make sure you're not in Pinterest as
Oh, it's
opposed
just
to
Because I do it all the time. I'm like, why does that look different? I'm trying to pin. Why does it have all these hashtags? Oh, I'm in the
That's
wrong
just
one.
not going to work.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
so funny.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
you can totally do hashtag finder on mobile. I'm so embarrassed. I knew that. Yep.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
you go.
it's
Of
there.
course.
It's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. We spend so much time on desktop. But
I know,
yes, I
it's
know.
true. But I know most of you live on mobile,
mobile.
and there it is.
Yeah,
There
it is right there. So yes, the answer is yes. Hashtags are there.
Cool.
And if you can't find it, right, we have the most amazing, I'm just going to brag on them, customer success team ever. It is so
Yeah, we
nice
do.
to spend time with these people. I love every one of them. So write in. You will have an actual human being speaking with you before you know it.
And
Yes,
they get tired
and
of me
they are
'cause I'm
actually
always
all
doing it.
based here.
What's that?
What's
Yeah,
that?
they get tired of me because there are actual humans, and I always am talking to them. And I'm like, why isn't this working? Why am I seeing weird things? And so, but they do get back to me, and they're very nice, even though
Yes, they
I'm probably
are.
annoying to them.
They don't even grumble about you. I had no
I know.
idea you were bugging.
It's like, and Jeff. Okay, so I think we've come.
He's so high maintenance.
I know, it's like it's that beard. So we're kind of coming to the end of our questions. You guys have anything you want to wrap us up with as we close out the show?
Well, just a couple of things. So if you haven't signed up for a free trial yet, do so because it does give you access to everything we've talked about and so much more. So I thought a great point on our member panel yesterday was a gal who said, I heard all about Tailwind. I said I wanted to try it. I thought I might give it a try, but I kept pushing back, thinking in my head I had to do all the things and do them all manually. And she said, oh my gosh, the freedom I had to be creative and get into my creative zone and my creative space, she said was just an unbelievable gift. So give yourself that gift of Instagram can be a time suck in and of itself. Give yourself that gift of not feeling that stress of, I'm rolling out of bed. What in the heck am I going to post for my business today? You can plan that out. And if you're not a planner, even get ahead a couple of days so you can breathe a little bit. So sign up for that free trial, get in, kick the tires, play around with it. And what else would you add, Lisa?
I guess just to reiterate that this is a partner tool, an approved partner tool.
Yeah.
So any feature that we add, even things that might seem a little strange because it's so new, like hashtags and first comment, are absolutely okay with Instagram.
Yeah, and I know we've mentioned that a few times, but in this day and age, when
you have to be careful.
Yeah, you absolutely do. You have to be careful from a security standpoint. What are people doing with your information if they're asking for your login and password? To
Yeah, or are they
Instagram?
going to shut you down because they know that you're breaking terms of service?
Right. You want to feel safe and secure that this tool is here to stay, that it's here to work with you, help you. Jeff's point about, customer success, these are real live human beings that are committed to getting you in and really succeeding, not just with the app, but at Instagram, at Pinterest, at marketing your business so that you don't feel like you're just hanging out there alone, beating your head against the wall, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. So, and to that point too, I would actually use our blog as a major resource. If you're looking for more of the strategy behind each of these tools, we go into detail into how to use those. And we've got Jeff here. We are so incredibly fortunate, Jeff, to have you as a part of
guinea
our team
pig. That's what
because
you're saying.
We are
no, you're the mad scientist behind all of this.
Well, that and
technology.
also
It's
we are
much appreciated.
really ramping up video
Mhm.
and in how we're bringing these features to you. So for those of you that do want more video, look out for it because it's coming.
And
Yeah.
by the way, I want to answer Erin Smith's question. She goes, I love this as a 4-month Tailwind user. First of all, appreciate you for being a user of
Welcome.
Tailwind.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Will this happen again? We are going to do this weekly, everyone. So
We
make
are.
sure that we're going to be doing this show. So make sure that you watch this page and the blog everywhere. And so I'm sure we're going to have some signups for notifications. And because this is going to be fun. We're going to be doing this every time. Let's see. Another one from Roseanne. She goes, thank you. I love Tailwind. It helps me when I'm sleeping. And that's
I
the
love
way.
it.
That's right.
Sleep well, Roseanne.
Yeah, sleep better with Tailwind. That's our new tagline. So
That's our
We-
new
We
tagline.
should partner
Yeah.
with Ambient or something.
That's
There you
right.
go.
right. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you everybody who is here and asking questions and commenting. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And we will see you next week. Bye now, everybody.
Thanks, Jeff.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.